Hi, this is George coming to you live from Nautilus Mission Control at the University of Rhode Island's Inner Space Center. And we are joined today by a very special guest, the president of the Institute for Exploration and of the Ocean Exploration Trust, as well as the driving force behind Nautilus Live, Dr. Robert Ballard. Dr. Ballard joins us from Nautilus, which is in the Mediterranean Sea, just off the southern coast of Cyprus, exploring the Eratosthenes seamount. If you would like to stick with the action on the ship, you can do so by clicking over to any of the channels under the Cameras tab. Right here, though, on the Nautilus Live homepage, Dr. Ballard will be answering your questions live for the next 20 minutes. You can submit a question by clicking on the Participate tab to the right side of the video. Please be sure when you do that to include your name and where you're from so Dr. Ballard knows who he's talking to. Also, keep in mind there's going to be a brief delay between my question and his answer. That's just because Nautilus is so far away. Dr. Ballard, let's dive right in, no pun intended. Can you tell us a little bit about this year's expedition? What have we found so far?
Well, we found a lot of fascinating things. We're on this particular seamount. We're here for a whole host of reasons. You have to realize that when you go where no one has gone before on planet Earth, you're not really sure what you're going to find. So we've been finding fascinating biological discoveries that I can talk about, geological discoveries, and we were just mapping two Ottoman war galleys that were sank about 3,000 feet beneath us. So we've been doing a lot of different things, and we'll continue all of that work, but now we're sort of getting in the final phase of this particular leg. So we've been exploring this seamount with numerous lines cutting across it, and we now have sort of figured out things we want to home in on. For example, on the top of this seamount, we've seen this unusual feeding pattern of whales. Whales are diving down 3,000–4,000 feet and feeding on something in the bottom of the ocean. We think they're beaked whales. They're a very mysterious whale we know very little about. We have a team of biologists both here and on shore who are very interested in trying to better understand what these guys are doing, because they're living in total darkness, feeding in total darkness. So we actually just finished mapping two different areas where they have been feeding over recent time, fairly recently, and then older sites. We've been sampling the bottom. We're trying to understand, what are they eating? There's no obvious food that they're eating. So that's one of the things we're doing. We're also very, very interested in the side of the seamount, because methane gas in solution is coming out the side of it, and this is triggering a whole nother life system, a chemosynthetic life system, similar in many ways to what we discovered in 1977 in the Galapagos Rift, but at much lower temperatures. We've got tube worms, we've got clams, we've got an amazing ecosystem living in that environment. We're going to be on that later in the next, I don't know, certainly within the next 24 hours we're going to be down there. And then we found a geologic formation that doesn't fit what we thought about this place. We thought this entire region was capped by limestone, and we find what looks like volcanic rock that's been injected. So lots of things going on. Go to our website, nautiluslive.org, look at all the blogs, look at everything. But it's been very, very successful, and we've got another several days to go.
It sounds like you're really multitasking out there. We've got our first question coming in from a viewer. They ask, what made you decide to explore this particular area?
Well, it's a very unique feature. Eratosthenes is a mountain, flat-topped, which makes it odd to begin with. Most mountains aren't flat, but this one is flat on the top. It's large. It's situated between Cyprus and Egypt, so it's situated in an area where we think a lot of ancient mariners have been traversing. And during our time here, we've documented over 160 artifacts that have fallen to the ocean floor. We've been photographing. We don't touch anything. We're not recovering anything. But we're taking pictures. We're sending those pictures to experts. We're working with a particular scientist at Harvard University who I've worked with over the years, Dr. Larry Steger, and he's helping guide. We have 2 students aboard who have a passion in classics. And so we've been sending those images ashore, iterating back and forth with them. So that's been a tremendous amount of interest on the part of some of the team members. So I'm actually interested in that as well. But I also like the geology. On the top are these big sinkholes. The early research that was done at this area suggested that these things we were seeing were mud volcanoes. They're not. And we went down and actually proved conclusively they're not mud volcanoes. They're actually sinkholes, very similar to what you get in Florida. This area at one time was above sea level. It was like Florida. And just like Florida, water circulated, dissolved the limestone, and then the roof falls in. I'm sure you've seen cases where they go on the news and they say a car fell into a sinkhole or a house fell into a sinkhole in Florida. We have the same features here. So all sorts of different reasons to come here, but one of them is this isolated mountain in the middle of nowhere that is being slammed into Cyprus. It's in a head-on collision between the Eurasian and African plate. It doesn't like it at all. There's huge fractures going on. We're going to be mapping a big area where the seamount is literally being thrust upon itself, big fault scarps. There are so many things that are of interest to us as why we're here.
That sounds like a really active area. We've got a question now coming in about our remotely operated vehicles. This is from Dan C. in Reston, Virginia. He asks, does any of the wildlife pose a danger to Hercules or Argus?
Well, it can, but not so far. We have had incidences in the past where fish attack us. The particular fish are billfish, marlin, sailfish, and swordfish. They're sort of pugnacious. They have that sword for a reason, and they use it. And I've been attacked, my vehicles, whether they're manned or unmanned, I've been attacked 2 or 3 times over the years by billfish. So, they can mess up things. So sometimes, although we had one get stuck, and we actually brought it up and ate it. So there is an upside to some of these attacks. But no, we haven't really had any serious attacks. We certainly, squid will, shoot ink in our face and things like that. But no, we haven't had any. Normally they run away from us.
And we've got a question from a viewer. They ask, how long can you be under the water at depth?
Well, indefinitely. I mean, we like to go down, stay down. I mean, this is all about exploring. We want to stay underwater as long as possible. It's like fishing. If you don't have your line in the water, you can't catch anything. And if you want to discover in the ocean, you got to be underwater. So we want to stay underwater every second. So ideally, we go down, we never come up until we run out of gas and hamburgers, and we have to go ashore and get some food. Sometimes things break. Sometimes we work our way into a corner and we want to go somewhere else, and it's a lot simpler just to pick us up and run over to the new place. Sometimes we tow ourselves over, but we send all our power down. We can actually send elevators down and fill them up and send them back up. So, ideally you don't come up, but I don't know how many individual dives we've made in the last week. I think we've been down several times for a couple days. I like to say I'll just stay down there, stay down all the time.
Sounds good.
I have one of these in my bedroom, so I just,
This next question is coming in from the Alderwood Boys and Girls Club. They ask, how many ships have you found?
In my lifetime? I don't know, over 100. Lots. I found lots of ships, Titanic, Bismarck, Guadalcanal. We found 50 ancient shipwrecks in this neck of the woods. We just found these 2 Ottoman shipwrecks. When we're off Turkey in a week, we've been averaging an ancient shipwreck every 11 hours. So I just saw something back there. Look at that guy. That'd probably be very good. We had shrimp for dinner, but it wasn't that one. But So no, we found lots of shipwrecks, and we, sometimes we go after them, sometimes we just bump into them.
What about on this particular leg of the expedition? How many ships have we found on Eratosthenes?
No, well, in the 2 times we found so far on this seamount 2 Ottoman war galleys, and they had guns and pistols, and we just did a beautiful mosaic of that. I think you'll probably find it posted on our video highlights, and lots of isolated artifacts. But this really isn't a ship hunting mission. I mean, when we're off Turkey, that's our primary goal, and so we're very focused. And then we, like I say, we find. This is not a shipwreck hunting expedition, but you bump into them. This is primarily a geological, biological expedition. So the flavor of the expedition can shift from leg to leg, and this one is primarily geology and biology.
This next question, Dr. Ballard, comes in from James. He's age 6 and he's in Washington, D.C. If you could revisit any site you've previously dived, which site would it be and why?
Well, that's a good question. And nothing's jumping in my head because there's so many favorite ones. I think I would like to go back to the Bismarck. And the reason I'd like to go back to the Bismarck is when I found it in 1989, I had really bad cameras and I didn't take very good pictures. I would like to go back and visit it with this modern technology and really see probably what I never saw. I've been back to the Titanic with this technology, and I've got hundreds and hundreds of hours. And I'm fine not having to go back there, but I think I'd like to go back to the Bismarck if someone said, well, you get to go spot. Where do you want to go? That you've already been. I'd probably go back there.
And this next question is from
cool.
Mrs. Templeins' class in Prosperity, South Carolina. They ask, what is the most exciting artifact you've discovered so far, and have you retrieved it?
Well, number one, because this isn't an archaeological expedition, we don't retrieve anything. In fact, our policy is generally look but don't touch. The only time we ever retrieve artifacts is when the host country wants us to do that. We had an expedition last year off Israel where we found an artifact, and the scientists, we have command centers ashore, and it was at Haifa University, and the archaeologists there said, would you please recover that artifact? And we did. But that's the first artifact we've retrieved in several years. So we tend to be more interested in mapping. What we found is we take such beautiful pictures that they're able to figure things out just based upon the pictures. But if an archaeologist, not a treasure hunter, but if an archaeologist asked us to pick something up, we would, but would only be because they ask us to, and then we would give it to them.
And this next question is from Soham at the Reston Community Center. He asks, are there any unusual species of organism that you found on this voyage?
Well, there's always crazy creatures that we've never seen before. I saw a couple of sharks I'd never seen before, and we post them and hope someone will tell them what we've seen. Clearly, the most interesting ones are these beautiful little. You'll see it probably, I don't know when we're going to be there in the next 24 hours, so stay tuned. We're going to be down on the side of the volcano, down around 3,000 feet, about 1,000 meters. And we're going to be exploring these vents, and they have these bouquet of tube worms they look like flowers, and they have red bouquets, and that's actually their lungs. They're red lungs that they're sticking out. But those are very strange, and you never get tired of watching them. I've watched, because they pop in and out of their tubes in unison. So it's you never get tired of watching them.
This next question is from Alex in Rhode Island. Alex asks, what happens when the season ends in a few weeks?
Well, we come home. We come home. The ship doesn't come home. We're fortunate to have raised some money We're constantly trying to improve the Nautilus and make it a better ship of exploration. And one of the things it's really been missing is a sonar it's a very big sonar. The cost to buy and install is about $2.5 million. And it's on the bottom of the ship, and it can make detailed maps. And if you're an explorer, you want a map. And so it's going to go in the shipyard, and we're going to put that sonar on, and then we're going to begin a trip around the world. But we now feel like we've been operating off Broadway, and now we're ready for Broadway. So we're going to, the Nautilus is ready to begin a journey around the world and to go where no one has gone before on planet Earth, because we can now make maps, or will be able to make maps around June of next year. So we're very excited about that.
Ready for prime time, it sounds like. This next question is coming in from Samantha in South Carolina. She asks, what do you do in your spare time? Fly
fish and raise 2 children. Well, they're not children anymore. And my son, Benjamin, is on the ship right now. This is his 3rd expedition. He started when he was 15. And oops, what's that? Oh, look at that. This is live. And they just came apart. Someone threw some plates overboard. But his passion is classical archaeology. So he's been mapping all the artifacts that we've been finding, going on the web, trying to figure them out. He's communicating with Dr. Steger at Harvard, and he's going to go off to college in a matter of weeks and pursue his passion. So when I'm not doing this, I like to be with my family. My daughter, Emily, will be coming out next year on her 1st expedition. She's been dreaming of this all her life, and she will come out next year. And she's constantly talking to her brother on the ship, and she's very pumped. So it's a family affair. A family affair indeed. We've got another question coming in from the Alderwood Boys and Girls Club. They're asking, have you ever seen a mud volcano erupt? Yeah, I have. My favorite ones were in the Gulf of Mexico at a place called Flower Gardens, and they erupt, and they look like a volcano, and they're shaped like a volcano. They're not giant, but they look like a small volcano. But instead of erupting lava, they erupt mud, and they belch methane, and you see this. They're really cute, actually. And I think if you went onto the web and looked for Flower Garden mud volcanoes, you might see some of our stuff. But yeah, I've seen them erupt, and it's like they're belching, and then all this mud comes out and it flows down just like a lava flow, but it's mud. It's cool. Actually, I'd never seen it before.
This next question is coming in from Anna in Michigan. She asks, what was the most exciting moment of your career?
I've been lucky to have a lot of exciting moments. Titanic was cool. But I would say it was the discovery of the hydrothermal vents in 1977 that when we looked out the window of our submarine and we didn't know what we were looking at. We had no idea. You know, you look out and you see the Titanic, you know it's the Titanic. But when we looked at these creatures and we were dumbfounded. You know, when a scientist is sort of speechless, which is rare, you've really got them. And that was a showstopper. And I'll never forget that, because we were all sitting around just stunned silence, because we couldn't explain what we were seeing, which is hard. You know, when a scientist can't explain something, they're pretty quiet.
And that's what science is all about. So tell us, Dr. Ballard, what has changed in ocean exploration since 1977? Give us a sense of the technological landscape.
Oh, I mean, it was so primitive back then. I mean, it was like 2 cans and a string. What we have now it's a Rolls Royce and getting better. I mean, this can spoil you. I mean, I actually don't have to be here. I have command centers just like the one on the quad. I don't know if you're seeing the quad, but you'll see the command center everyone's sitting at. Well, I have a little dashboard in front of me and little things. I can put that anywhere, And if I were to right now want to talk to the pilot who's driving behind me, I would just push this little button and I'd talk to them. And they wouldn't even know where my body was because they don't really care as long as I have an intelligent conversation. But the fact that I'm 5,000 miles away, they don't care as long as we're looking at the same thing, talking about the same thing. So when you think about where we are right now, I mean, we're living in the cloud. I mean, when I started doing all this, there wasn't internets, there weren't computers. I mean, I'm a pretty old guy. And so I went to sea for the first time when I was 17, 53 years ago. I mean, that was like going out to sea with Neanderthals. I mean, with, clubs. I mean, it was pretty primitive. And I look at this and I just extrapolate where we're going to be in 10 years or 20 years. It's hard to imagine, but I'll bet you we'll be mostly all done remotely, and then we'll go to bed at night in our home.
Dr. Ballard, this next question is coming in from Kelsey in San Antonio. She asks, what made you want to explore the ocean?
When I was a kid, I read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Repeat that, please.
When I was a child, and I lived when I was a child growing up, I was growing up in San Diego, although I was born in Kansas. But my dream to be what I am was I wanted to be Captain Nemo. And that's why we call the ship the Nautilus, is because that was my dream, to grow up and become Captain Nemo, to have this magical window. Remember, this submarine had a magical, I go to my magical right there. There's my magical window. And I just look out the window and drive around the planet. And I'm living my dream, and I'm thrilled that this little kid from Kansas was able to pull it off.
We've got one final question. This is from James in Washington, D.C. He asks, what do children need to study in elementary school to prepare to work with you one day?
Well, they need to study the sciences. I studied geology. You need to study your math. Math. Think of it as mental push-ups. I got to tell you, I didn't run home to do my math. I didn't say, oh, I just can't wait. I can't wait to do it. I did my math because I knew that if I didn't do it, I couldn't play in this game. So it was mental push-ups. A lot of homework I didn't do it because I just thought it was the greatest thing on the planet. I did it because I wanted to do something that required it. And so that's the key. And you're going to need to take chemistry, geology, and mathematics, and physics. But just go ahead and do it. I promise you it'll be worthwhile, and you'll get to play in a game you can play for the rest of your life.
Dr. Ballard, that's all the time we have for now. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any final words of wisdom for our viewers out there?
I would just tell young people to follow their passion. If it isn't science, that's okay. Follow your passion wherever it takes you.
Wonderful. Thanks again. For those of you following at home, be sure to mark your calendars. Next Tuesday, August 28th, we'll be hosting a live event with the Jason Argonauts. That will be at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. In the meantime, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and of course, you can always join the expedition live right here at nautiluslive.org. Now, back to Nautilus.